How you doing? This is John from John's Long Box. We're still doing a series on the Marvel Vault, the museum in a box, just a collection of Marvel Comics history. A friend of mine got me this as a gift about 10 years ago, and I had it packed away before I moved, and when I took it out, I just had to open it up and look at it. So here's the third installment of the Marvel Vault, the 60s. Hope you enjoy this. Hope you saw the other two videos. And again, the 60s in Marvel Comics, you got to talk about the Fantastic Four. That's a Jack Kirby drawing. Okay, and his original Hulk when he was gray. My chair's running over my wire. Okay. Writer's Digest. There's money in comics. How to make a fan book. The truth about True Detective Stan Lee. Okay. Old picture of young Stan Lee. Okay. Season's greetings. Here's a from Smile and Stan and the Merry Marvel bullpen. The bullpen was at the time everybody worked at Marvel, and it was just, I always pictured just like rows and rows of desks. Here's a supposed to take this out, but I never do. But this is a script. Okay, I'll turn it over. That's what Stan Lee would give to the writers. And here's Fantastic Four #1, and this is the official Marvel Comics. Okay, and the legend is that Stan was just so tired of all these silly monster comics, because after the Comics Code Authority and the hearings in Congress, comics had a bad reputation, and they were watered down, and he was just, his morale was low, and he just told his wife, you know, I want to quit. You know, I'm not doing what I want. I'm not happy. It's not the way it used to be back in the 40s and early 50s. It's just dull. This is 1962, and so his wife said, "If you're gonna quit, just do the comic you always wanted to. What do you got to lose? You're gonna quit anyway." So he just looked at her and said, "You're right," and he did the Fantastic Four. Now this is interesting because giant monsters were all the thing. So of course he hedged his bets. Stan Lee, you know, was a genius. There's no other way to say it. So he had a giant monster. So it was in the giant monster trend, and then they had the superheroes, but that, if you notice, they don't have costumes. And the Human Torch, Johnny Storm version, this was you know, to catch people's eyes who remember Johnny Storm. And then the Thing, he's a monster in itself, and then these two, but they don't look like superheroes. So what's going on? The Thing, Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch. Okay, so he's hedging his bets. He's trying to do superheroes and he's trying to do monsters. And here's his monster, the Mole Man. This is the Mole Man's gigantic creature. Okay, the Mole Man was a man who was so ugly he had no choice but to go underground. And when he went underground, he found monsters. This is the original Fantastic car, the flying bathtub. That's what Ben Grimm used to call it. So now they got costumes. Okay, that's Joe Sinnott. That's the inker. If you ever seen Mallrats, they explain what an inker is. He goes over the pencils and he covers it in ink and gives it depth and shading. Okay, that allows the penciler to do a lot of pages, and then the inker just, you know, if you want to be ungracious, you say tracing, but it's more than tracing. And here's the Fantastic Four in their famous costumes. Okay, Fantastic Four fan page. I love that. Fantastic Four #3. This is the debut of their costumes, I think. Their annual meeting up with. This is the return of the Submariner. He's been gone for a couple of years, and meeting SpiderMan. Look at Jack Kirby draw Spider. As much as I love Jack Kirby, he never could do SpiderMan. That's awful. Okay, looks like he's made out of yarn. Okay, so Johnny Storm finds the Submariner in the Bowery, and he's just walking around with amnesia. She's walking around invisible, and he says, "You look familiar. You're the Submariner." And he drops him in the ocean, and that restores his memory. And then Submariner goes, "Oh yeah, before the war, I wanted to destroy humanity." So he goes back to destroying humanity. Okay, here's the Hulk #1. I don't have this. I wish I did. Is he man or is he monster? Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, you know. And here's the Hulk. He was like bluish gray. I don't know if he was supposed to be green and there was a coloring mistake, or they wanted him blue. And again, this was Marvel, hedging their bets. If it didn't go right, he was a monster. He was a superhero monster. But the original Hulk wasn't such a good guy. I love that. That's Dr. Banner getting hit by radiation. And here is the second issue. He's already green by the second issue. The Toad Man. Okay. You see he's gray already, gray, and then he's turning green within the comic. It was all because of problems with the coloring, and then it was a mistake. So I don't know if he was always supposed to be green or if he was supposed to be gray, and then they turned him green. Here's the Doctor Doom, my favorite Fantastic Four villain. Just so hokey, and they did him so bad in the movies. I hope the Marvel movies. And here's Spider-Man. This is Steve Ditko now. His artwork's different. Steve Ditko was very good with the regular person. Here's his origin, got bit by the spider. And then look at that. That is just amazing. I still think that is just one of the best designs in all comic book history. It's a crime to alter that costume. Look at that. That is just amazing. I remember sitting at the lunch table in 3rd grade, and we were looking at Spider-Man comic books, and it was just a philosophical discussion about the greatest costume of all time. And about 6 or 7 5th grade boys, we all unanimously agreed that is the greatest superhero costume of all time. And you can't argue with 7 5th grade boys. Okay, here is Steve Ditko's. Look at that. And if you notice from that picture before, he looks like Steve Ditko. There he is fighting Crusher Hogan. Puts on the costume. I just love this. There's Aunt May. She's 900 years old. Sick, but yet she's went through more. She was buried alive by Dr. Octopus. She went through so much for such a frail lady. And introducing the mighty Thor. Yes, that's the very first drawing of Thor. The most exciting superhero of them all. They were basically told, we want a Superman type, so we got to make Superman. And they're like, well, Superman is godlike, so Stan Lee said, so let's make a god. And the red cape was definitely an homage to Thor. I mean, blue and red. Okay. Thor debuted in Journey into Mystery 83 in August 1962. 1962 was a great year for comics. And then eventually the Journey into Mystery was knocked off. So Thor never had a number 1. Thor's number 1 is Journey into Mystery 83. 15 cents. Okay. This is the first appearance of Loki. It's Loki in the comic. And Thor was Dr. Donald Blake. Originally, it was Dr. Donald Blake found a magic stick that he would bang on the ground and turn into Thor. And then later on, they said he was always Thor, and that was punishment for his arrogance to become a doctor. Oh, the return of the Ant-Man. So this is the first appearance of Ant-Man. He didn't have a costume, but that's Jack Kirby. Look at that. Stop and obey Ant-Man. And then he became Giant Man, and there's the Wasp. The living eraser. Okay, this is Spider-Man number 1. Okay, the famous comic that we all see. Spider-Man debuted in now I'm gonna freak out and forget. Amazing Stories number 15. Spider-Man, and they didn't think they got a couple months went by. So when they decided to do a Spider-Man comic, they had to guest star the Fantastic Four to ensure success. Look at this Steve Ditko drawing. Oh, beautiful. Okay, and then speaking of Ditko, here's the original Doctor Strange. Just big amulet. Okay, Doctor Strange, Master of Black Magic. Okay, this guy, I remember this. This is the very first Doctor Strange. So this man goes to help, and he's explaining these dreams that he has. And Doctor Strange is gonna go. Look at that. If you're watching my videos, I assume you saw the Doctor Strange movie. But look at this. I remember saying to my wife, how can they explain the dark dimension where Doctor Strange frequently goes to fight these things? And they did it in the movie. This is all Steve Ditko. Okay, Stan Lee just told him he goes to a dark dimension, and that's it. That's what he comes up with. Just amazing. I must have flipped through these comics over and over again as a little kid. Okay, this is Iron Man. This is not the first appearance of Iron Man. Iron Man had the gray armor, but this is the first Iron Man comic, big premiere issue. He was in Uncanny Adventures, or Tales to Astonish, or Tales of Suspense. I forget. That debuted Iron Man, and Marvel Comics was doing so bad that DC Comics was distributing Marvel Comics, believe it or not. And part of their deal was they limited their comics, so they had these split comics. So half the comic would be Iron Man, the other half would be the Hulk, one half would be Doctor Strange, the other half would be the Human Torch, one half would be Captain America, the other half would be Iron Man. They did it to keep Marvel sales low, but then once the deal was over, that's when they debuted. So a lot of the number ones, the comics, were not the first. I never understood that as kids. So here's Captain America's been gone now for 20 years. He's coming to, this is Avengers 4. They find him frozen in the ice. There's Iron Man's early armor. And he joins the Avengers. Look at that. Look at that. Just gorgeous. And this, I talked about in another video. This is a classic example of 4-color comics, because the printing was limited. The color palette was very limited. Okay. Now the X-Men are coming. They call her Marvel Girl, Cyclops, the Beast, and it's just gorgeous. Daredevil. Okay, the Silver Surfer. I talked about Silver Surfer the other day. This is the first appearance of the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four 48. Okay, and Galactus. Okay, so Silver Surfer comes. There's the Watcher. The Watcher comes, and the Silver Surfer. Look at that, Galactus. Basically, Galactus. They were like, "What we want them Fantastic Four to fight God." So Galactus was Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's comic book representation of God, an evil God. The origin of the Silver Surfer, John Buscema, just gorgeous. Look at that. I know I keep saying gorgeous, but what do you want me to say? You know, just filled with Kirby crackle. I always remember as a kid, I always thought there was a hole in his head, but it's just planets. You know, he was always existential angst. Look at him. There's nobody there, and he's just ranting and ranting about his life. He's flying around the Himalayan mountains, just wandering and philosophizing. That's him as Norrin Radd. That's the famous image of him off of his comics, #1. Okay, and we'll stop here because I'm at 12 minutes, and then we'll continue in the next video.